Tommy joins me once again, RomTom Episode 3. And I think before we get into the football side of things, a very important life event, a very important musical event occurred last night,
Yes,
11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, midnight Eastern. We had a Taylor Swift album that dropped, Life
it's
of a
huge,
Showgirl.
absolutely huge. And I've been listening, largely prompted by Romy, but I've been listening intently. Been on, it's been rush hour these last few hours trying to configure, what my favorite tunes are, etc.
Now,
I
I don't know your previous history with Taylor Swift. Are you
it,
like familiar? Like, do you like her music? Like,
it's
what
deep.
albums?
I do. I love the classics. Every now and again on my playlist, I'll get Blank Space, I'll get Love Story. Come on there. It'll usually blindside me. Hit me out of the blue, but it's never a bad thing when the T Swizzle, comes through the sound system in the vehicle. So, extremely excited. Obviously for you and yours over at the Rombo household. I know it's a even bigger event, arguably, than it would be in others, which is absolutely huge for the brand. And she's just blessed us with new music. So,
Yeah, I mean, the vibes are immaculate on it. She's obviously engaged to Travis Kelce now. The Chiefs we will get to later in this program, but I mean, they're living life. They're having a good time. Give
yeah,
us before we
what's
head to
your
the football.
favorite,
What was that?
favorite the album?
The album?
Your favorite songs?
Oof. I mean, she starts out strong. Fate of Ophelia is a banger. Opalite, Kelsey's favorite song. I love Opalite.
Okay,
And then closing it out with Sabrina, I think they're dynamic. Like the way
yeah,
that they play off each other is really good. I mean, them singing together is music, literally
it's
music to my ears.
it's harmonic, isn't it? Look, my I've got to say my favorite song was Honey. To be honest, I also heard some Travis Kelce undertones in there. I think he's quite a sweetie from what I can infer, just from the music. Quite a sweet talker. So, Honey is my favorite song. It's awesome. I'm a bit of a sucker for the Taylor Swift, and then I believe it's called How Romantic as well. Is also taking a few shots at the previous lovers that haven't delivered, and then obviously Travis Kelce comes in the picture and solidifies that spot as the number one. So
That was a major event that occurred. Them finally getting engaged. That was something that people were speculating as to when it would happen. An
mm.
interest of ours in Taylor Swift, an interest in yours, formerly in Minnesota. You're a Vikings fan.
Mm.
From back in the day, from Tommy in high school, and Minnesota. They might as well be the Minnesota Europeans at this point because they have another game in Europe. They're playing at London, the Cleveland
Insane,
Browns. They couldn't
insane.
quite get it last week against the
I mean,
Steelers, but
I'm not envious of three. I believe it's 3 games straight in Ireland. I don't think the players are huge fans of it, especially the older guys. Like, um, yeah, it can't be good. Can't be good for the system. International travel during the season obviously brings more revenue in for the NFL and on a global stage as well. But nonetheless, we've got exciting football games to watch, don't we? So,
yeah, I mean, we can stay on that for 1 second because I was kind of curious, like the the jet lag. I mean, going from playing in that, like they were mentioning Kansas State and Iowa State on the college side of things, it took them
yeah,
about 3 weeks to kind of get back into the swing of things. And K-State's obviously struggled, and then Iowa State has played well, but what is that
yeah.
jet lag like? I mean, I'm sure you haven't had to play like games right after a huge flight, but how is that like the overseas travel?
Yeah, well, it's insane. I mean, and it's not to be understated. I remember in high school, I arrived in Minnesota, and the next day we had training camp, probably fall camp actually up in Minnesota. So it's hot as hot in August as it would be anywhere in the Midwest. That was absolutely insane. Poor planning on my part getting there the day before, but I ended up. I believe I went to bed at 7 p.m., woke up at 2 p.m. the next day. So it was a cool, 17 to 19 hour nap for Tommy. So I can only imagine how it hits, big time college football players. And I wouldn't doubt that it takes 3 weeks because I mean I know a lot of my friends on the team, have just traveled around the US and whatnot. You might be dealing with a 3 hour, 4 hour flight. because there's so much to see here, which is great. But man, it's a culture shock for a lot of people, I bet, and a shock to the system. With the jet lag, so I'm not surprised we're seeing a bit of a dip, especially with K State. Um, but then you look at it on the NFL level, and they're still human too. They look superhuman on the field, but it's got to affect them.
Now, this drew me to a question that I wanted to ask you. With a lot of these games being played in not typical American football type stadiums, they're either soccer or maybe even rugby. What's the most
Yeah,
obscure atmosphere you've ever played at, whether it be football or another sport?
man. I mean, the best atmosphere is probably here at Missouri Western. Honestly, like, we'll get a few thousand people to the games, and I think tomorrow for homecoming, they're saying like potentially 8 to 10,000, which could be a bit optimistic, but it's going to be absolutely huge. So big homecoming matchup tomorrow. So that'll be honestly the biggest kind of stage I've been on. But yeah, back home we have the Australian football grand final, which was recently, which is a totally different sport, but there are 100,000 people at that, which is our major sporting event at home. Um, so man, it's absolutely nuts. But yeah, I mean, in Ireland though, the stadiums look absolutely packed, which is awesome. So I saw Skylar Thompson, the backup Steelers QB, was robbed and mugged and injured in the process. The night before, or 2 nights before, it was the Friday night before their game versus the Vikings last week. So the Irish don't play around. They say luck of the Irish, but that could not swing in your favour and you get mugged. So not ideal there. There's a few, yeah, wayward individuals.
Apparently, it was like 95% Steelers fans, like all of Ireland's Steelers fans, I guess, for some reason.
That is crazy. I didn't know that, but that's the thing. It's so hard to predict. Like the stadium could be full of one team for all we know. Um, but yeah, I guess you don't know until you actually watch the teams play, and then you're like, shit, okay, all of Ireland supports Pittsburgh.
Now, this season so far, we've had 4 weeks of football, and kind of the leading team in the NFC is the Philadelphia Eagles sitting at 4-0. It hasn't really looked like a dominant 4-0 start for the Eagles. We've had obviously last week with the looking great on offense, and then the second half, Jalen Hurts not having a completion. Now, I have a stat for you, Tommy. The
I'm ready.
Eagles so far through 4 games, can you guess what their point differential has been in 4 games?
Man, I would. I mean, they've had close ones. I don't recall a blowout as far as I'm aware. So I would say, well, let me guess, 4 games. Say they're probably sitting at 26 or something points a game. So I would say like 105 to their defense, 105 to 85, 90.
I have I didn't have the number specifically, but the
Yeah.
point differential is 20
Wow.
through 5 games. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs of last year, I
Yeah.
was curious because they're showing similar tendencies through the first start of the season because the Chiefs went 15-2, but they didn't look like a dominant team of that
Yeah.
record. The Chiefs had the exact same point differential through 4 games last year, 20.
That is insane. And that's the first thing that came to mind, honestly. But I think it's interesting when a team learns how to win, they find a way to win. Like that's what we saw with the Chiefs last year. And say what you want, but they ended up at 15-2 and ultimately made it to the Super Bowl. We know what happened, obviously, but the Eagles obviously have learned how to win. And everyone will say, "Oh, but the offense shut down in the second half, whatever." But if you're winning football games, it's like when Chris Jones at the end of the Chiefs Eagles game was said to Jalen Hurts on the hot mic, he's like, "You have 100 yards." He's like, Jalen Hurts like, "Well, we won." Like, so that's all that matters, especially when it comes to the National Football League. Like college, it's more about statistical kind of individual performances, especially with the NIL. It's a big individual focus, but man, the NFL, that's why we love it. It's the ultimate team sport.
Yeah, I mean, you can never really count out the Chiefs. I think the Eagles, I mean, they have the potential to start something special here. Obviously, we haven't really seen it this year, the dominance that they had last year, but I think that leads straight into our game contender or pretender this week. And
Wow.
like we were just talking about, the first team I have for you, the Kansas City Chiefs, do you think they're a contender or pretender early on in this 2025 season?
I think they're a contender. Honestly, I think they're finding their footing. Yeah, they've only beat a Giants team that is largely incompetent for the most part, and a Ravens team that we know is beat up, absolutely like unprecedentedly beat up, which is absolutely wild. But they're getting a few of their receivers back. Rasheed Rice, I know, is coming back soon. We saw Xavier Worthy make explosive plays that we've been looking for since he's entered the league. Contenders. As long as Mahomes and Andy Reid, Chris Jones and Kelsey are there, contenders.
Now, a team that we've kind of seen the opposite of, where they started out really strong and have kind of slipped a bit the last couple weeks, the Green Bay Packers, through four
Mm.
weeks, they're sitting at a 2-1-1 record, I believe. And
Yep.
so far early, do you have them contending still, as some thought in the beginning, or are they pretender?
That's a tough one. I'm actually going to say pretender at the moment because we it's easy after the first 2 weeks to say, oh my goodness, I know one of their uh, star players claims they could go undefeated, and then infamously, they lose the next game to the Browns. But I've got to say pretenders because we've seen them have you know playoff runs to an extent, but we haven't seen that sustained success, and that's what we're looking for this year. So we were hoping to see that. Obviously, could have easily been sitting at 4-0, but the reality is they're not, and they haven't shown us enough to be contenders, in my opinion.
Now, this team, it's a little bit of an unfair team to put in this category just because what you mentioned, I mean, the Baltimore Ravens, nine defensive players on the injury report and six offensive players, including former MVP Lamar Jackson. Just an
It's
absolutely the injury bug has just ravaged through the whole locker room. And I was shocked to see the Texans favored in that game, but seeing all the injury report, it's not a shock to see them favored only by 1.5 in that game. But for you, I have the two questions, one being contender or pretender, and then who do you think will win that Texans Ravens matchup?
First of all, I'm going to take the Ravens in the matchup, purely I think because of the coaching advantage. As long as you've got John Harbaugh at the helm, I'm going to take the Ravens. They've proved, they win games. And last year and the years prior, to be honest, their defensive backroom has been ravaged by injuries. Uh, it's been more stable since they got Kyle Hamilton, but because of the coaching advantage, I'm taking the Ravens. And as far as that goes, I I'm gonna say pretenders because if they had won you know three of their first four games at least and could sustain a few losses as people get back, but they can't afford to lose any more games because then you're staring in a hole where you're not going to have home field advantage necessarily in the playoffs, etc. Um, and the division is looking quite strong as well because we expect the Vikings and the Packers to bounce back to an extent. So
Yeah, I think every season coming into it, teams have these expectations, and there's always that one team that we expect to do really well, and they just falter and they have the season from hell. Last year, we saw it with the 49ers, and in previous seasons, we've seen teams that we expected to be good just falter. And I think the Ravens are very well up in that
yeah,
echelon of teams that,
that also I just misspoke very badly. I was speaking of the NFC North, but the AFC North is very strong in its own regard with the Steelers atop that division right now. Yeah,
it's all good here on the RomTom. We make mistakes, but we
yeah,
catch them in the end. And last
yeah.
but not least, the Los Angeles Chargers and Justin Herbert, are they for real or are they frauds?
I think they're for real. I think one down game, we can't characterize that. If it was a stretch of games, that would be different, but I expect them to bounce back against the Commanders this week. Jaden Daniels coming, in for his first game back. I'll still take the Chargers. So contenders.
I think that was my biggest X factor of the week. The how does Jaden Daniels look after a
Yeah.
couple weeks of being injured? And that's a huge game this week. We can get into the big games of the week. I think that one will be a key game. I think Tampa Bay and Seattle, both of them sitting at 3-1, is a huge, huge game. Both of them are near the top, if not leading their respective divisions. And if you had to choose between the Buccaneers or the Seahawks, which one, if you had to pick right now, will win their division at the end of the season?
I'll say the Bucks. I'll say the Bucks just off the strength of the division. Honestly, that's pretty much the only factor differentiating them. Um, and we've seen more consistent play over Baker Mayfield's last few years than Sam Darnold had the incredible year last year and a hot start to be completely fair. But I would trust Baker more in the big moments, just a slight edge to the Bucks.
Yeah, the NFC South division. It's tough to get wins in that division. It's if you can win it with a 9-8 record very easily.
Oh yeah.
Another situation that I'm very intrigued to see, Jackson Dart, the Darty Party,
Oh my.
as mentioned on the RomTom episode 2, faces the New Orleans Saints. Saints favorite at home. Can Dart repeat the success that he had in his first career start?
Yeah, yeah, I believe he can, and I'm excited. I'm optimistic that he has the Saints in his second start because he got thrown into the fire there against the Chargers, and then, before the game, everyone's saying, "Oh my goodness, why you're starting him against the Chargers to start off with?" He goes out and wins, and then people say, "Oh well, he threw for only 100 yards, whatever." But man, I think what he did was incredible. The composure, showing what he could do with his legs as well. So I'll definitely take the Giants. I'm honestly surprised they're not favored.
Yeah, I think as we mentioned, the Saints and the Panthers are probably fighting for the worst team in the
The
NFL.
toilet bowl, yeah.
A couple of these games, if you wanted to have any notes on them, we have Cowboys, Jets, Raiders, Colts, Dolphins, Panthers, and Titans, Cardinals. Any notes on any of those games that might not be too marquee for the average fan?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you said it best, to be honest. I expect the Cowboys to um, walk over the Jets. The Colts, I expect them to bounce back against the Raiders. They only narrowly lost to the Rams. Should have won, really, if you saw that, touchdown that got, you know,
Mitchell.
dropped
Mitchell
early.
cost them 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, yeah, threw for a touchback. It was ridiculous. So they should be 4-0 right now, no doubt in my mind. But I expect them to bounce back against the Raiders. And then as for the other games, not so much. Like seeing how Cam Ward, plays is always interesting. But apart from that, not a whole lot to write home about.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of my favorite players to watch, but it's just the
Yeah,
situation is just it's like seeing like Victor Wembanyama on the Spurs in his rookie season. There wasn't much
yeah,
around him, but it's pretty much just his show.
yeah.
Another game that a duo of games that I think could be pretty interesting, but the team that's favored, I think, is the more interesting thing to look at. Now we have the Lions and the Bengals, and the Patriots and the Bills. And between those two teams that are favored, the Bills and the Lions, who's looked better so far through 4 weeks?
I would say the Bills. I would say the Bills just because how they've looked from start to finish. The Lions, walked into Lambeau and got walked over, and that was when we were really high on the Packers. I would say the Bills have a slight edge. The Lions look a bit more sporadic, but I mean that's a really tight one to be honest. Just a side note, obviously taking the Lions, but I'm taking the Patriots at Buffalo, which is wild. But I think it's I think it's kind of set up for them to win it. To be honest, I think just Drake May's finding his footing. The Patriots' offense is actually putting up quite a few points through the first 4 weeks of the season. I think it's a danger game for Buffalo at least.
This could be Drake May's coming out party to the national audience,
I
beating
mean,
Buffalo at Buffalo.
football, yeah, yeah. I think the writing's on the wall, Romy.
I could definitely see it happening. We've seen crazier things happen in the NFL. I think
Yeah,
that could be a fun one. I think that could be something that Drake May needs under his belt. Obviously, last year he had one of the worst offensive lines in the league in New England. And this year, there's been signs of promise, but he has these couple plays every game where it's kind of a bonehead mistake or just he's super young. He's still very,
Yeah,
very
exactly.
young.
I mean, he's got weapons out there as well, and I mean, I'm excited to watch it. It's the first time I've watched Drake May on prime time, um, which will be epic, and I think that'll be the case for a lot of people. So, it'll be exciting to watch.
Now, last week we had a segment that I love doing each week. We have, as I call it, the overrated, underrated, and meeting expectations or
Yeah,
properly rated. Now, I have a couple to throw at you. I came prepared this week.
yeah.
Now, in terms of, we'll start out with overrated first. And for me, I think these players are talented, but Derrick Henry, he's been having some troubles. He's leading the league in fumbles with 3 fumbles so far in the year. Saquon, Christian McCaffrey in terms of his running stats, I know his receiving stats are quite well for him, but his rushing, he's not averaging the yards per carry that he did a couple seasons ago. Obviously, last season he had those injuries, but what were your thoughts on the my overrated list and then
So
some that you had?
yeah, Derrick Henry, I completely concur with. The fumble issue is definitely there. So there's no arguing that at all. Christian McCaffrey, I'm going to go against that one. I think he's rated right on because of the impact he's had on the games. And to be honest, I think defenses, when they knew, they were facing Mac Jones, stacking the box a bit more, combating the run and trying to shut CMC down. But I actually think we'll see that open up for him because people, can now obviously see they need to respect Mac Jones in the passing game. Um, you know, putting up, 300 plus yard performances like he did against the Rams. So I think we'll see CMC bounce back to, having those huge 150 total yard performances that we're used to seeing from him.
Yeah, he was on my list for the underrateds along with J.K. Dobbins. I think J.K. Dobbins is playing really well for the Broncos. He's hopefully going to lead them to some success. We'll see what happens against the Eagles. That'll be an interesting matchup. Hopefully, be one of the best games of the day.
It,
Unless it's an Eagles blowout, then I don't really
yeah,
know if the Broncos
both
can.
happening. I see a low scoring affair happening in that one, to be honest. Two stout defenses. The Broncos are, you know, I assume riding high on confidence after holding the Bengals to 3 points. Although it is the Bengals offense, without Joe Burrow, I think anytime you shut a team out of the end zone is a huge, huge, milestone for the defense.
Now, for properly rated, I didn't really know where to go with this. I think Geno Smith is playing kind of as we expect, like he's having some ups and some downs, but a player
Yeah.
that I didn't know where to put Puka Nakua playing like the best receiver in the league.
Oh my goodness. I mean, he, yeah. I mean, I guess, you would almost say underrated because, yeah, people, it's strange. People don't put him in that conversation. Like, it's always, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, um, CD Lamb typically. Like, you've got the big three, but I think Puka needs to start to be mentioned because, you know, uh, typically, Jamar's got Joe Burrow throwing to him. CD's got, Dak Prescott and Matthew Stafford, probably just a hair above Dak, but, it's not like he's the MVP of the league. And for Puka to have the success he's had, and we know the rookie season wasn't a fluke. So, yeah, it's insane what he's doing.
He's the real deal, and it's watching that Rams offense with Stafford. I mean, Stafford at his age, we've mentioned it before, just it's unreal. Like it's like Brady to how long he played kind of set the expectations. Like every quarterback needs to play into their 40s. We've seen it a
Yeah,
little bit with Rodgers this season, but
yeah.
it's hard. It's nearly
It's
impossible, and
it's
Stafford's probably going to do that.
yeah, and I mean, without Cooper Cup, we didn't really have a good vantage point on how the Rams offense was going to look, but it looks new and improved, honestly, with Devontae Adams, taking a lot of the attention, of the defensive backs. And then you've got Puka, and obviously Kyron Williams is a huge weapon as well. He just kind of fell short at the end there, having that crucial fumble on the goal line. But, the Rams, yeah, I wouldn't count them out. Like, they were toe to toe with the 49ers, who we know look like the real deal. So man, that'll be interesting to follow, especially just the NFC West in general.
It's a fun division. I mean, the Cardinals are a little bit sneaky. The Rams, explosive offense, as you mentioned, the Seahawks. Is Darnold going to be able to keep this success train going? And one thing that I did want to bring up, since we haven't really covered it too much, the quarterback situation going on in Ohio with the Cleveland Browns. Joe Flacco benched, Dylan Gabriel's in, Shador Sanders is still QB3 there in Cleveland. Your thoughts on that quarterback room and what's going on?
Man, it's nuts, isn't it? I'm excited for a change in general, but honestly, obviously they've seen Shador play all through training camp, etc. But I would start Shador, honestly, just for what it would bring to the fan base as well. Because I think the excitement factor and, building the morale of the team um, is huge. So, yeah, I would love to see Shador out there. But obviously, it is saying something, if they're not electing to do that. Um, although it is the Browns, I would trust their judgment, as an NFL franchise. So, nonetheless, I'm excited to see Dylan Gabriel play.
Now with Sanders, I didn't get your thoughts on it. Like, what were you kind of thinking when he was sliding all the way down to the fifth round eventually? Like, did you think it was a personality thing? I mean, the talent he had, he showed flashes at Colorado
Yeah, yeah,
talent,
he did.
but
But I mean, also, it's not like it's unprecedented. Like, if we looked at it objectively and he wasn't, Deion Sanders' son, um, playing at, a mid tier school in the FBS and then, not having a ton of team success, it's like, it's not just going to be a cakewalk, although he was projected to be a first round pick, as we know. Um, things like that do happen. It was just under such a spotlight and so polarizing because so many eyes were on it, obviously. But I think, with the moxie and swagger he had at Colorado, like people were ready to, hate on him and bring out the, you know, pitchforks on fire, trying to tear him down. But, I think he's still got, you know, a career in the league, obviously. I was disappointed to hear, though, like, those things came out after the, uh, Baltimore game. It's like, um, yeah, like he didn't want to, Dion didn't want him to go to Baltimore backing up Lamar Jackson. All of a sudden, Lamar Jackson's not playing. It's like the plan's all gone to shit. So,
yeah, I mean, I think these people just think too much with where they're going in the draft and declining offers, and we've seen it over the years many times of players not choosing to go to a certain place. It's
I
just
mean,
very questioning.
and it's worked out in the past for some, Eli Manning, etc. But those are isolated incidents, and I'm sure if you said that, if Aaron Rodgers had that same mentality, or you know, with the Packers now, Jordan Love as well, it's like, where would they be in their careers? Like, I think going to a solid franchise that's run well is the key.
Yeah, I mean, with all sports, with NFL, NBA, it's very situational. You could have a great player, and if he's in a horrible situation, his career might not turn out that same way, and
Yeah.
vice versa, the other way. But before we wrap up RomTom episode 3, I have to end with our favorite segment here, Coffin
Oh,
Corner.
oh
Now,
yeah.
Tommy, as most of you know, if you do not know, is a punter in college football. And each week I will figure out a question that I want to ask or a topic that we can go over here on the Rombo Show. Now, I was hearing about, I was listening to radio talk shows, and they're talking about all these long distance field goals that are happening in the NFL and college and a lot more in the NFL, but so because college kickers have a little bit more time adjusting and things of that nature. But we saw a 70-yard field goal happen in the preseason, and we've seen these kicks like even 20 years ago, 60-yarder was unheard of.
Mm.
Now, obviously, with like training and there's a whole bunch of new stuff. Like we've seen all of that increase. We've seen players are faster, stronger, they can kick farther. What is a distance that a kicker could make that will shock anybody? Like, is a 70-yarder, like, are kickers going to start making 70-yarders in a couple of years, or what are your thoughts
I,
for the future?
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't doubt it honestly, like because the competition just keeps getting better. I think a huge factor as well is the players coming over from, sports like soccer. Like it's insane. Like, you see Brandon Aubrey, uh, and then I'm not sure if it's the Carlson brothers as well. Um, but I mean, yeah, you see the players come over from soccer. They might play in the USFL or whatnot, kind of find their footing. But I think that's a huge factor as well because I think also that timeline that you mentioned 10, 20 years ago, teams wouldn't have been as open minded to having, oh, this guy plays soccer and then he wants to come over. But now it's like, if you can produce, especially with what we see in college football, Australian punters coming over, former soccer players becoming kickers. Um, teams are fully open to it, and I think that's been the reason for the drastic change, in the kicking standards. And then, as you said, the natural progression of sports as well. Like with the NBA, NFL, we see unprecedented things happen, kind of year by year. But I think that's kind of the biggest factor to draw on in terms of the longer field goals. And I mean, now, it's like with anything. It's like when, nobody thought the 4 minute mile was possible and then it got broken and then a bunch of people broke it right thereafter. I think, now that Cam Little proved the 70 yard is possible in the preseason, like we might see that occur in the regular season, hopefully. I think later down the stretch or in the playoffs, when the stakes are a bit higher, teams will, be slightly more conservative. Um, and you know, we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting. Like it is a big deal though, sending a kicker out for super long field goals because of the field position battle, as we mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of our huge topics that we looked at last week. Comedian Larry David did mention a couple years ago or a little bit ago about getting rid of the field goal kickers and how that would look in football in general. And because with all the misses, and it would definitely change it. Like you have to go for it on fourth down. That would be something that would, I don't think will ever happen, but it would be a very interesting element. What would football look like without kickers? Like how would
Yeah,
that even?
and I would hate it to be honest. And um, honestly, like having that 3 point play taken out of it, it's like that creates the whole fun of football. It's like having a safety. It's like what 2 points? Like that's so you know
Or the
um,
2 point touchdown, running it
yeah,
back like the
yeah,
Cowboys.
exactly. Like it's these random occurrences, and those things you don't think about. Like you think about punching it in the end zone, but a lot of the games, especially down the stretch, later in the season into the playoffs, are won by, you know, 2, 3, 4 points. So man, field goals are huge, and that's why having such a capable kicker really, really helps your team.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing to bring up when we have Tommy punting, bombing 50, 60 yard punts. But any closing thoughts here before NFL Week 5?
Man, I'm excited to watch. I think the matchup of the week is the Patriots at the Bills. I'm super excited to watch that and just, consume another week of NFL football. My favorite day of the week, NFL Sunday, when you can kick back, relax, and consume the action. Been loving watching college football too. Just it's the best time of year, isn't it? The fall.
October, we're gonna get conference games, pretty much all of college football. NFL is gonna start to heat up. We're gonna see these
Yeah.
undefeated teams knock it out, these one-loss teams battle it out. So New England, if they upset the Bills, we will already have known that Tom is he's seeing the future. So you heard it here on the Rombo Show, RomTom Episode 3. Thanks again for joining.
Yeah, no worries, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. And we're really on a roll to think that this is week 3. Absolutely love to see it. So thanks for having me on.